Hopefully you've been right there getting ready for the rest of 2017. Back now from Washington, D.C. Bullet points for today. Guess what? Let's review. Donald Trump is president. Next, we can do all the hand-wringing and gnashing of teeth you want, but Donald Trump's president. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk a little bit about his speech, the time spent in Washington at the inauguration. Then I was also right in the middle of the Women's March. I mean, right down the middle, in the middle of it all. Make no mistake, it was quite an experience, a learning experience, no question. We're going to talk about that on today's program. We're going to continue in 2017 with Allan Saxe. Liz Peek will be here. Asra Nomani, of course, you know her, former reporter for the Wall Street Journal, a Muslim-American woman struggling for the soul of Islam, and so much more. Seton Motley will be here, and much, much more. I don't know how we get it all into one program. That's how, I guess Ivy uses that magic dust. I wonder what that was on the counter. At any rate, get ready, pull up your pants, have some coffee. This is The Steve Gruber Show.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is The Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, you know, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, it's Monday, and glad to have you with us for the week. Of course, you want to be here every day, because if you miss a day, you miss a lot. We can't have that, now can we? Just getting back from the inauguration. I'm going to share some things with you about that in a moment. I'm going to share some things and some comments about not only the inauguration, but the 500,000 pink hats or so that were in D.C. on Saturday. Caught squarely in the middle of that. Just trying to go to a couple of museums. Bad day to go to the museum, I can tell you. But so much to cover. First of all, I want to say thank you again to Hillsdale College for letting us use the Boyle Studios there in the Kirby Center, because they had a terrific location on Mass Avenue, not too far from where we needed to be. And so I guess I'll just reflect on a few of the things that I've been reading on social media and watching in the news since we went to the inauguration. First of all, the inauguration was packed. This notion that somehow there were big gaps and big empty spaces on the Capitol Mall, it just isn't true. I can tell you, we were sitting there watching on the Jumbotron live, and by the time President Trump came down to take the oath of office, the mall was packed, and you're seeing it in real time on the Jumbotrons as you looked around. And you can tell the pictures that are real because you'll see a whole lot of red hats. I mean, that's a pretty good way to figure it out. You'll see a whole lot of red hats, and you'll get an idea there's the sea of people, right? So the people turned out en masse for the inauguration, not in the numbers that Barack Obama enjoyed during his first inauguration, but then you wouldn't suspect that. When the first black man to assume the presidency gets inaugurated, you can assume for historical purposes and more that he would have more, and he does. And it's not like I didn't realize the number of people at an inauguration was some sort of a competition. I thought the competition was actually held on the 8th of November. I thought that was the actual measuring stick by which we determine who the president of the United States is, and we did that. So as we go through all this contentious back and forth and arguing about how many people were there, and CNN putting up absolutely absurd pictures showing big gaps in the attendance, I can tell you we were there. And I can tell you the place was packed, more than 1 million people. I talked to people. I mean, we spent the whole weekend in Lyft and Uber cars getting moved around the city from place to place where we had, well, to the best of our ability. At certain points, I mean, many of the streets were closed down, which made it difficult to move. But the city was inundated on Friday with Trump supporters, and then on Saturday, of course, with the anti-Trump movement. And for the teachers out there that, tried to prevent or did prevent, I should say, their students from watching the speech because they were concerned about language and denigrating of people or some such rot. For the 16 minutes and 12 seconds he spoke, I heard nothing but it's time to rebuild America, with a sobering assessment of some of the things that challenge us today. Of course, those on the left called that a dark and militant speech. We'll get back to that in just a moment, but I can tell you it was not. It was somebody that was willing to tell us here is what we have to deal with. And in order to deal with this, we need to come together. And patriotism basically exceeds racism. And you look at the armed forces and the police and different places, that's exactly true. When this country comes together, we are very, very strong. I did get the occasion, though. I have to backtrack a little bit. The first morning we were walking out of the Hillsdale College D.C. campus there, and we're standing there on the sidewalk, and I look down, 50 yards or whatever, and I see this guy walking at us, and Ivy has her back to him. And I chuckle, and I said, Ivy, get your camera. This is now up on the Steve Gruber Show Facebook page. And I said, Bernie Sanders is right behind you. He is not. I said, Bernie Sanders is right behind you, and I want a picture. I've never met a grumpier old man in my life. Do you mind if I get a quick picture, Mr. Sanders? I'll love you real quick. So I put my hand on his shoulder and said, so how you doing this morning? While she's getting the camera ready, how you doing this morning? No, you got any way to work? So she snaps one quick picture, and off he teeters on his way. No good morning, goodbye, no nothing. Mr. Sanders, nice to see you. All I wanted to say, is how are things going? You intend to run again when you're 106 or, whatever. I just thought I'd ask him. Anyhow, curmudgeon doesn't even begin to cover that. So I thought the inauguration was smooth as silk. First of all, we saw no protesters. You saw a few going through. Maybe they were back there somewhere. We didn't encounter protesters. Protesters didn't interrupt the event. The whole J20 thing was a bust as far as I could tell. We were right there on the west front of the Capitol, standing right next to a bunch of empty seats. Now, if you saw empty seats, plastic seats, folding chairs, not the ones at the front, but there were quite a few at the back. The reason that is that Democratic members of Congress, that's how you get seats to generally get into these restricted areas. Your member of Congress provides those to you. And what happened was Democratic members of Congress took their allotment of tickets and gave them to people that threw them away intentionally. That's exactly what happened. We talked to a couple of people. They confirmed for us that is what had happened. Out of complete disrespect for the process, out of complete disrespect for the office of the presidency, they took the tickets, and instead of giving to those that would have been glad to have them, they threw them in a trash can as a show of snubbing the president, because that's just pure class. Pure class. More about our visit and the chance that I got to walk right down the steps where Donald Trump was inaugurated with Congressman Tim Walberg. Good work there, and some time with Congressman Heisinger and Bishop as well. 14 after here on the Steve Gruber Show.
The Steve Gruber Show. American values with Midwestern common sense.
All right, so let's review real quickly before we continue on, because there seems to be some confusion about this. Donald Trump won the presidency, and now we're on this path, and now we're headed down this path to wherever it's going to go. But let me just say, this: there was a bit of a stumble at the beginning with Sean Spicer, the new press secretary, who came out and wagged his finger at and berated the media, which may have been more productive and more impressive if Sean, you should have lowered the lectern. You see, the podium was too high. It made him look like a little kid back there, and it was oh boy. Yeah, Sean, you need a lower podium or lectern or whatever because you look like a little kid back there. All right. According to the website, heyjackass.com, there were 4,379 people shot in Chicago this past year. 750 of those died from gunshot wounds. Now, as of today, last night, there have already been 38 people shot and killed, probably higher since I last looked. 189 have been shot and wounded. That's right, 227 people shot in Chicago already. But to hear the liberal Democrats tell it, it's Donald Trump's fault. To hear the left tell the story, Chicago is actually much like Disney World. It just has a shooting gallery, you see. Donald Trump is just giving a dark and hateful narrative on an otherwise cheerful place. Only in this shootout, not in the liberal fantasy, there are real consequences with real bodies on the ground and no real solutions anywhere in sight. Any problems that exist in Chicago, according to the hardcore Democrats, come from Republicans and those on the right, even though they haven't been in charge of the Windy City since before I was born. The TV news folks on the hard left, like Rachel Maddow, Chris Matthews, Van Jones, and the other bomb throwers, would have you believe that Donald Trump's inauguration address was dark and militant. Now, if that means actually telling the truth about the destruction of people's lives by gangs, drugs, and the pervasive and persistent violence in places like the inner cities of America, then I guess they're right. If that means telling the truth about the graveyard of American factories scattered from Pittsburgh to Peoria and beyond, I guess they're right. If that means telling the truth about picking replacement parts from airplane boneyards to keep the Marines in the air, then I guess the speech was dark and militant. Now, if that means connecting with a forgotten America in the middle that feels mistreated and ignored, then I guess they are right. Now, on the other hand, I have different fingers, but that's for another day. Right now, let's look at this from another angle. To me, it's refreshing to hear the president tell the truth about the challenges we all face. It is a cold slap of reality to realize that it isn't all rainbows and unicorns and, censor this part, pink pussy hats. It is also about damn time somebody was willing to look us in the face and say, you know what? We have some real problems here that we have to get under control. And if we don't, then your whole progressive new world order won't mean much. Because if it all falls apart before we give official victimhood to every newborn baby that ran the abortion gauntlet and survived, then what difference does it make anyway? Seriously. What difference does it make if we hit a credit crisis and the monetary system fails, or get sucker punched again by radical Islamic terrorists while you're spending all of your time on the critical issue of same-sex bathrooms? Does it really matter if you have a cute handmade pink hat if there is an actual crisis that we have to deal with? Newsflash, Donald Trump won, and you encouraging the obliteration of his presidency 3 days into it by supporting social justice warriors in the honorable pursuit of smashing windows out of fast food franchises is probably not the best course of action. But hey, if cheering for Madonna while she dumps F-bombs on live national TV 4 times over makes you feel better about yourself, well then by God, go for it. After all, I do support free speech. I mean, as I shared with my daughter who was trapped in the Women's March with me in D.C. over the weekend along with my wife, the only way to know how much you disagree with someone is to let them run their mouths freely. So hate away, I say. You are certainly reinforcing the very reasons your candidate lost in a big way, and Donald Trump got 57% of the Electoral College vote. You can blame the Russians or fake news. You can say voting machines were hacked or that Republicans somehow blocked minorities from voting. You can say just about anything you want, and again, I encourage you to do so. I hope you continue to attack the next 4 years. I hope you treat Donald Trump worse than Ronald Reagan. You do remember how his second run for the White House went, don't you? You do remember telling us we'd all die in a thermonuclear war if he were elected, right? And remember telling us the economy would crash? And remember telling us that Ronnie Reagan was going to put us in a war that we couldn't survive? You remember all of this, correct? Well, let me assure you, we all remember. So please, by all means, please stay on the warpath. Please let Madonna speak on a regular basis. Please get Michael Moore on a nationwide tour as soon as humanly possible. And please continue to denigrate, insult, marginalize, label, and degrade all of us that have an opposing political view with your uplifting message of inclusion. Please keep doing all of these things, and we'll see Donald Trump not only win 2 terms, but Mike Pence behind him as well. Your radicalized view of the world and your weaponized social media attacks no longer intimidate the good people of Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and beyond. You can kick and scream the entire time you fly over us from your home in L.A. to your condo in New York. You can continue to pump propaganda into the free-running sewers of the internet, but it doesn't seem to have the same effect anymore. So please, be loud and proud. Please tell us how you are enlightened and we are knuckle-dragging cavemen. Please proclaim that you know what is best for you, me, and everyone else. Embrace the nations that truly believe women are second-class citizens while assaulting the world's beacon of hope, America. I beg of you to do this. For if you do, we will finally rid this nation of the illness of progressive, socialist, Marxist thought that has sickened us for more than a century. It is time to put a lid on the garbage can Woodrow Wilson spilled into this nation, and it's time to begin the long slog of cleaning it up. Don't worry. We're happy to do it. We know you have more important things to do anyway, like getting Madonna back on stage for an uplifting, expletive-filled diatribe on the deficiencies of being a man in America these days. Or maybe you're too busy booking your own all-inclusive trip to the exclusive South Chicago resort of Liberal Land. After all, I hear it's nice this time of year. With its hail of bullets and recreational finger-pointing, being a victim and playing the blame game is certainly good fun for kids of all ages now, isn't it? Ah, yes. Ah, yes. The beauty of free speech. No, really. Please continue. I will get to your phone calls. 888-900-9966. 888-900-9966. It's the Steve Gruber Show.
Delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
All right, welcome back to it. The Steve Gruber Show on a Monday. Glad to have you on board with us, and glad to have you here. Let's go to the hotline. Steve's been patiently waiting with some vitriol. Steve, how are you?
Good morning, sir. We did it, I guess. 2 points. First of all, you forgot to mention the fact that the NEA is flush with cash as an educational system fails. An example of that would be looking at the MEA in Michigan, where we have gone from about number 3 35 years ago to 6th from the bottom. The second part I'd like to point out is, how can I put this? The Democratic Party is going through a meltdown, and you're seeing a separation of the crazies and the radical left in opposed to the people that are straight, common-thinking people. And like John Engler proved with Double V and the governor that was running then, you can take Michigan, you don't need Detroit.
Well, that's exactly right, and apparently you don't need East or West Coast to win the presidency. Steve, thank you for checking in. Greatly appreciate that. Now with Allan Saxe, our good friend, the professor from the University of Texas Arlington, political science professor there, who's been there for a very long time. Professor, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
So I'm just returning now. I had a very long civics lesson from Wednesday through Sunday. I spent time at the inauguration. It was terrific. I walked through the Capitol. I was at the crypt. I walked down the stairs that Donald Trump walked down, and I stood in the spot where he was inaugurated the day before. I did that on Saturday. And then Saturday, I thought it would be a good idea for my wife and I and our 12-year-old daughter to go over to one of the museums. And we got caught square in the middle of the Women's March. We didn't have the right hats on, but, we got crushed right down the middle for about 3 hours. You couldn't move. So we got to see all of it right up close and in person. All those videos, by the way, on the Steve Gruber Show Facebook page. But, Professor, it was quite a weekend in civics.
I've wondered how spontaneous the women's marches were over the country. They called them spontaneous. Of course, there may be a different definition of spontaneity that I know about, but it sure seems like that it was well organized and financed. I wonder who paid for all the buses. Well,
let's see here. Let me see. Let me grab an article here and help you with that question. Let's see here. Billionaire George Soros has ties to more than 50 of the, quote, partners of the Women's March in Washington and around the world.
Oh, no. I thought it was just some women that said, we've got to get Donald Trump right with this stuff.
No, I mean, here's your buddy from Eastern Europe, George Soros, with his fingers. I know you're shocked to hear that.
I really am. Don't the women know that they should not be manipulated that way, that some rich billionaire is manipulating them? But I guess they don't care.
The irony of it all, Professor.
It's sort of interesting. I have a civic lessons, too, that came home to me. But it's sort of interesting when you think about it. President Clinton did what Donald Trump talked about, and yet I don't remember any demonstrations even close to this against President Clinton. So I guess the thing is, if a Democrat does even looks at a woman the wrong way, you're in trouble. Excuse me, if a Republican even looks at a woman the wrong way, they're in trouble.
Clearly, you know.
If a Democrat does something 10 times, quote, worse, that's your popularity is going to go up. If I remember correctly, President Clinton's popularity actually went up during the time of his impeachment hearing.
I think it did because they felt that he was under attack all the time.
Right.
And you look at the media. The media has ratcheted it up even over the last 3 days as far as the attacks going. But here, let me help out the Trump people a little bit here. First of all, when Sean Spicer comes out to give his press conference today, get the man something to stand on. All right, when you look, when the podium's too tall and you look like a little kid back there.
He did.
I'm sorry, and I'm not picking on Sean, but come on, guys. That'll be on Saturday Night Live this coming weekend. If it's still like that, they're going to have a little guy with his chin resting on the podium on Saturday Night Live. I guarantee it. Come on.
That's me. I look like that, except I'm not as big as he is. But I'm about 5. I am so little.
You're a little feller?
Oh, I'm very small, and I can barely look over some tables. That is true. But I had a civic lesson also. I spoke at a university, not my own. I spoke at a university some time ago, and it was a group of academicians. I love that word, academicians, and college administrators and counselors, and it was brutal. I'm learning it's not only college students these days that cannot understand diversity and sarcasm. College professors can't either. I'm a very sarcastic little man.
Well, I heard this a long time ago.
It was brutal.
Listen to me. I heard this a long time ago, and I believe this to be true to this day. People on the left really don't have a very good sense of humor.
They don't. Boy, did I learn that.
No, you learned that. Where have you been for the last 25 or 30 years?
They were brutal. I mean, it was incredible. But you'd think that college professors, who seemingly have a way with language and words and understanding, they'd understand sarcasm. I'm a very sarcastic little man, as you can probably tell. I can't help it. It's genetic. I was born that way. And they were just eviscerated me.
Oh, I'm sure. Honestly, do you remember Sam Kinison, the comedian?
Yes.
That's a fellow we could use today in America, just to blow him up and say, "What are you doing?"
It was really shocking. I have to admit, I didn't like it. I'm not going to say what a lot of other people say when something like this happens to them. Oh, it didn't bother me. It did bother me. It really did. It hurt me. But
they don't care.
I'm still alive. But it was disappointing when you find that college professors are like the students. They can't understand diversity, and they don't understand sarcasm.
Well, that's the thing. And again, they don't have a sense of humor. Why do you think no comedians go to college campuses anymore? Because they can't say anything that's truly funny because somebody's going to be offended, and they're going to have a riot, and they're going to all go. The inclusive bunch is the least inclusive group of people I've ever met. Trust me, I was around about 400,000 of them in Washington over the weekend, or whatever it was, 400,000 or 500,000 of them. And I can tell you, these people, the most hateful, repugnant signs I've ever seen in my life, talking about how they want to end hate, but they're the most hateful group of people with their screeds, and of course Madonna dropping F-bombs on live TV at least 4 times.
Well, Madonna said that her words were taken out of context.
Yeah, how do you take the F-bomb out of context? F you. How exactly?
And I'm going to blow up the White House. She said.
Yeah, she's gonna get a call for that one. She'll get a call from the Secret Service for that one. I guarantee it. I mean, they can't ignore that.
And then Ashley Judd, I don't know what she was yelling about.
I have no idea. Literally, we were so packed in down there once because we kept thinking we were trying to get to the Air and Space Museum, right? And in order to get there from where we had started, we had to go right through the middle. Well, it couldn't be that bad. And the farther we got in, the worse it got, and the tighter it got, and the worse it got. And anyhow, we got packed in there for about 2.5, 3 hours. It was a long time. We were stuck down in the middle of all that mess. But we wormed our way through. We got our way through, and we finally got through. But for my 12-year-old daughter, that was a civics lesson. She goes, why would they write things like that? Why would they say things like that?
Absolutely correct. Why don't the women's movement have a demonstration like that in, let's say, Pakistan, or Saudi Arabia, or any one of the states that I could bring up very, very quickly? It's interesting.
Well, hold that thought. We got to go to a break here,
sure.
Professor. Just hold that thought. There's so much more to talk about. Donald Trump, by the way, let's check the scoreboard. Yes, Donald Trump is president. Thank you. Just a recheck and a reclarification. 41 after on the Steve Gruber Show.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop.
Got it in
Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy.
Been a long education.
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, welcome to it on this Tuesday. Glad to be back here. Was in D.C., as you probably know, from Wednesday through Sunday. Had the opportunity to attend the inauguration. Had an opportunity to be led on a tour by Congressman Tim Walberg through parts of the Capitol that are not easily accessible. It was a very special privilege, I think, to stand in the spot where Abraham Lincoln sat when he was a congressman from Illinois. To stand in the crypt, which is at the center of the Capitol. The crypt is where George Washington was going to be buried originally, and it is the literal center of Washington. To walk up the stairs, this spiral stone staircase that British soldiers rode their horses up during the War of 1812 when they attempted to burn the Capitol down. But then a freak rainstorm, an act of God, if you will, came along and rained and put out all the fires. Now, it was damaged, but salvageable. And then to walk down the stairs where Donald Trump had walked down the day before. It was incredible. The whole visit was incredible to see this. And that side of the Capitol, the first president to be inaugurated on that side of the Capitol was Ronald Reagan in 1981. That inauguration, by the way, still holds the record for the most viewers. Donald Trump's viewership on television, what I was looking at yesterday, puts it in 5th place out of the last 13. But they're going to add in now, they're going to accommodate for those that watched online or on their devices, so that's likely to go up, what I'm told, significantly. I don't know where it'll put it in the scheme of things. I think Ronald Reagan will probably still win, but who knows? But the crowd, despite what you might see on social media, the crowd was massive. It was 1 million people, maybe a bit more. And we were watching on the Jumbotrons live as it happened. There's some debate over the size of the crowd. I don't really care. The fact of the matter is it was 1 million people or more. It was sizable. Not as big as Barack Obama's first term inauguration, but that would be expected. It was bigger than his second inauguration. At any rate, this became a big argument as far as the crowd size. And again, I don't really care. But what I'd like to share with you is one of the things that Donald Trump said that I thought was particularly important, which was giving people the rule. And I want to review one piece of his inauguration speech. It's clip 5. And President Trump says that the people are the rulers of this nation again, and he has officially become the 45th president of the United States. Clip 5.
For
Go.
too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government while the people have borne the cost. Washington flourished, but the people did not share in its wealth. Politicians prospered, but the jobs left and the factories closed. The establishment protected itself, but not the citizens of our country. Their victories have not been your victories. Their triumphs have not been your triumphs. And while they celebrated in our nation's capital, there was little to celebrate for struggling families all across our land. That all changes starting right here and right now, because this moment is your moment. It belongs to you. It belongs to everyone gathered here today and everyone watching all across America. This is your day. This is your celebration. And this, the United States of America, is your country.
Time for the power to be returned to the people. And I thought that was an interesting approach. Donald Trump referred to himself exactly 3 times during the entire speech, 3 times. Barack Obama, by comparison, during his farewell address, referred to himself 75 times. Those on the radical left referred to this as dark and divisive and militant. I don't see how you get that as dark and divisive and militant. When we have problems in this country, I'm going to address it. You are the people in charge. Of the people, by the people, and for the people. And that's what he said. Now, he's not an eloquent speaker. He's not a master orator. It's not what he excels at. But it will be a full day today, I can tell you that, as he gets started on his first full day, on the first full week, and gets rolling. But already the attacks have begun. The left is so angry. The left is so angry they don't even want him to get started. They won't approve his cabinet thus far. And now a liberal-funded watchdog group says it's planning to file a lawsuit against Donald Trump, alleging that he is violating the Constitution by allowing his business to accept payments from foreign governments. This is this emoluments thing that has nothing to do with any of this. And it's a stretch and something that's never even been put into place. Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics say they plan to file the lawsuit in the Southern District of New York today. The group claiming that Trump is violating the clause of the Constitution that prohibits his business from receiving anything of value from foreign governments, and because he didn't divest his businesses, the group claims he now is receiving gifts from foreign governments via guests and events at his hotels, which is complete and abject garbage. He has no control over who books rooms and hotels that he built. And he doesn't give special favors to people because they stayed at the Trump Hotel. I mean, how would you even know? Let's see. This is his third full day on the job. Anyhow, this is what expect this for the next 4 years. And here's what I will tell you, my friends. These kind of attacks, these ad hominem attacks on his character, on you and I, and anybody else that, voiced any support for his ideas and his plan to fix the things that are deficient in America, these ad hominem attacks will continue for the next 4 years. And when people are talking about like Waters, Congressman Waters, she's already talking about impeachment. Impeachment for what? He's been on the job 3 days. The left is so panic-stricken, that they can't figure out what to do next. They can't accept it. They refuse to understand they lost. And we in the middle don't want to be dictated to anymore. So be vigilant, my friends. Stay the course, and let's refresh and go through it one more time. Donald Trump won. He has both chambers of Congress. He is the president of the United States, and he will lead. And he will find ways to do that, although there will be a learning curve with a 435-member board of directors, if you will. Stay with us. Liz Peek straight ahead here on The Steve Gruber Show.
Covering Michigan and the world from his bunker below the bridge. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right. Monday here on the program, and like I said, the left already filing lawsuits and trying to figure out what they can do. Maxine Waters calling for impeachment of Donald Trump because, after 3 days, clearly he has done something that's impeachable. I mean, come on. Not even 3 days yet. My next guest, Liz Peek, columnist FoxNews.com and the Fiscal Times. Liz, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well, I went to the inauguration. I also got myself right in the middle of that women's march, unintentionally, but there I was. Quite a civics lesson. I just wanted to go down and see a couple of things. Next thing I know, I was in a sea of people, and I had the wrong headgear. I didn't have the hat. I didn't fit quite in. But what a weekend in Washington, certainly. And I don't care. It's a great transition peacefully of power. And then, of course, the people that want to have their freedom of speech, that's great. It's all there. It's on display. What do you make of it?
Well, exactly. I mean, all of that was legitimate. I think what is not legitimate is just the continued pounding of every aspect of this administration, including and maybe most offensively, the picking apart of his cabinet nominees. Yes, they should go through vetting, but the vetting has been very personal, very hostile. Rex Tillerson's a good example. Rex Tillerson's an extraordinarily accomplished man who rose to become head of the largest non-state oil company in the world, and to have people impugning his credibility because he did business in Russia, to have Marco Rubio still on the fence. I mean, it's all about political posturing.
It is. Marco Rubio will vote for him. There's no question about it. And they don't even need Marco now because you've got the senator from South Carolina is on board, Lindsey Graham. Yes,
and John McCain.
And John McCain. I just had a little gap there. But, yes, they're all on board. They're going to get through. He is posturing. You're exactly right.
But I think the sort of sad thing here is that Rubio senses, look, he's running for 2020. He's hopeful, in a sense, that he'll get a chance to run in 2020. That is to say that the Trump administration won't be successful enough to sort of guarantee a rerun. And it's just infuriating me. I mean, look, we need Republicans to respond to the fact that in this election, the tent indeed grew larger and invited any number of working-class Democrats in to vote Republican. And we need to keep those votes. We need to keep it through moving ahead with the agenda that Donald Trump laid out. And I think all this excitement and interest in protests and inauguration size and everything, Trump has to learn to ignore all that, ignore the noise, and move ahead with the agenda. But let's face it, the Democrats are hopping mad, not just because they lost, but because they lost so broadly, so profoundly, and they didn't see it coming.
They don't get it. They don't get it. And here's what I'm going to say. I talked about this earlier. You know, you've got Madonna out there F-bombing on live television 3 or 4 times. You've got Michael Moore, who's grotesque in every aspect of his existence, out there, demanding that Donald Trump be removed. I say let him speak. Put Madonna on tour. Let Michael Moore do the opening monologue. Get him out there, because let me tell you something. People in America are just becoming more entrenched in their beliefs, and those are the ones that don't speak up. They're not going to say anything. They're not going to argue with the feminist who's running, but they will go vote, just like they did this time. And every time you denigrate somebody who lives in Iowa or Michigan or Pennsylvania, they remember.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And, somebody said over the weekend, why didn't you go and vote? Yeah, it's a lot of Sturm und Drang. And, in fact, as you say, as people watch these hideous marches and protests and all the bad language and so forth, it really does confirm what a lot of people think about the protesters. There's no question about it. So I don't think it helps their cause, nor does it help, by the way, for the New York Times, for example, to be talking about sort of what's next. What are we going to see next? And having Planned Parenthood talking about organizing 2,000 activists and paying them to go and disrupt, blah, blah, blah. Why should I, as a taxpayer, possibly feel sympathetic with funding that effort? I do not. And I think, again, this just hurts their cause.
I do, too. And I think that I just read a quick article about a man who a woman sat down to him and started denigrating him about being a Trump supporter, and she said he needs to be thrown off this plane. They actually escorted her off the plane.
Yeah, good.
And because, listen, ordinary Americans, we might be split 50-50, but common decency has a place. And I'll tell you that most of the signs that I saw on Saturday lacked any common decency whatsoever, and there were children there. And they want to talk about Donald Trump and his vulgar behavior and so on. And then they put children in, and there's all sorts of language I couldn't even come close to using on this program, on signs, being chanted, being screamed at people. It is an eye-opener, and I've posted videos all over my Facebook page for people to take a look for themselves.
I think it's very revealing, but also what's revealing is, what was the point of this protest? In other words, it's fine to protest, but what exactly are the issues? I think it was Laura Ingraham or somebody who put out a thing saying, they're protesting Trump's policies on, what was it again? Because really, what is it?
What policy does he have at this point?
Well, but also, no one is threatening to undo equal pay regulations, right? That's the law of the land. And by the way, everyone agrees with that law of the land.
Correct.
No one realistically is talking about challenging Roe v. Wade.
Here was the best question asked the entire weekend. My 12-year-old daughter was with me and my wife as we went through this crowd, this sea of people, and all this hateful behavior. She goes, aren't they hating on Donald Trump? I said, more accurately, they're hating on anybody that supports him. And she said, well, don't women have the same rights as men in this country? I said, yeah. Has it always been that way? No, 100 years ago, women couldn't vote. But since I was born, yes. Since you were born, she's 12. Yes. And she's like, well, then what are they protesting?
Well, I mean, there were kind of idiotic things. Like there was one group with signs about being invisible. What are they even talking about?
I haven't any idea. That's the thing. You know, in fact, I challenge anybody listening. Call me on the hotline. Tell me one right that a man has in America that a woman does not, and I won't get a call.
Yeah, no, and look, many of us have written about this whole equal pay nonsense. It is nonsense. It is legally the case that you have to pay women the same as men, and the reason that average pay is not the same is because women make choices. They make choices to work part-time or not to pursue, careers beyond a certain point, etc. I can give you 1,000 examples of it because having worked on Wall Street many, many years, a lot of my friends eventually said, you know what?
They want to do something different.
They want to do something different. They have a choice between being a stay-at-home mom and working.
We got to leave it right there, Liz. But I'm guessing for the next 4 years, we'll have something to talk about.
We sure will.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye now.
Delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
33 after on this Monday. Glad to have you aboard as we continue down this conversation of the inauguration, the Women's March, so on and so forth. Jenny joining us in Brownstown real quickly on the hotline. Jenny, what's on your mind?
Hey, I want to mention the three things about the speech that were great. Everything, it was all great, but God's name was invoked, and he was mentioned for who he is. Radical Islamic terrorism was called out for what it was, and Trump dissed the people that are the problem as they were standing around him.
Jenny, you're spot on everything you said there. You pulled out some good stuff. Thank you for calling. Greatly appreciate your input. Thank you so much. All right, so we're going to talk about this with Asra Nomani when she gets here. I've just been sitting here watching this video. I just mentioned this, a video that I just put it up on the Steve Gruber Show Facebook page. You've got to go watch this. This woman is totally berating a guy sitting on a plane next to her because he had voted for Donald Trump and that, she thought that he was an awful human being, that she would just get, he says, well, everybody has the right to their opinion. And I have a right to get drunk and puke in your lap. Maybe I'll just get drunk and puke in your lap. Finally, some people around this situation notified the flight attendants. He was flying from Baltimore to Seattle. He had an upgraded seat that he paid more money for the 6-hour flight. And the woman just got on. Did you come here to cheer protest? I came here to celebrate democracy, ma'am. I knew this was going to be a long flight. She then proceeded with, somewhat paraphrased here, you put a crazed man in charge of the nuclear code. You should be ashamed of yourself. I'm entitled to get drunk, puke in your lap. And this is just another fine example of the inclusive liberalness that envelops us. Mike in Ann Arbor checking in on the hotline. Mike, welcome to it.
Hey, Steve. We had our pizza party. It was great. We cheered. It was a wonderful inauguration, and we celebrated by having food that was totally against Michelle Obama's diet. Pizza, hot wings, what we call the salad with ham and salami in it. And by the way, one thing that I saw that was not mentioned, we finally have a beautiful first lady, simply gorgeous. Remember all the stuff, Mike, you bring me to something here just briefly for an aside here. All the nonsense, I am not going to cooperate and, be a fashion designer for this first lady. It looks like she struggled through, Mike. She just barely got it, just barely able to struggle through with those stunning outfits. I mean, she looked spectacular. Every man that was at our party was cheering her. They thought she was the most beautiful woman they've ever seen. And I'm going to tell you something. What an improvement over our past first lady. Yeah, absolutely. And it was a special day.
And trust me,
Yes,
I was
it
there,
was.
and I watched, and these people, I'm watching on the internet now, and this whole discussion about, how many people were there. Listen, I watched on the live monitors. It was packed all the way to the Washington Monument. You could see it on the live feeds because you had jumbotrons around us. We're watching the whole event unfold. There's no question about, how many people were there. And then you see CNN and others put up pictures that show the place half empty, and it's like, wait a second. Then we found videos of CNN's own coverage that showed that wasn't accurate. I mean, they're showing it 2 hours before, an hour after. It was nonsense. Go on.
Can I say one more little thing?
Say anything you want.
Okay, I am so glad that the federal government finally decided to charge these 274 protesters with rioting and a possible 10-year sentence and a $250,000 fine. Maybe if more of this crud goes to jail and has to serve hard time, they will think twice about rioting in the streets.
Right. I don't mind people protesting, Mike. Let's be clear about that. You want to have a march, you want to protest, that's fine. Throwing rocks and bottles through the McDonald's and Starbucks window, that's not part of the deal. Attacking and beating people in the streets, that's not part of the deal. You want to carry your signs and say, hey, hey, ho, ho, whatever has got to go, that's fine. But violence is not part of the deal, Mike. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
Thank you. And we have a beautiful First Lady.
And thank you very much for checking in. The hotline number, 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966 is the number if you want to get in on the conversation today. I mean, I was there. I also ended up in the middle of the whole women's march. It was a civics lesson for my 12-year-old daughter that was terrific on both sides. And joining me now is Asra Nomani, former reporter for the Wall Street Journal. She was there for many years. And Standing Alone is the book she wrote, An American Woman's Struggle for the Soul of Islam. Asra, welcome back to the program.
Oh, thank you so much.
Now, we don't have a lot of time here, but let me get your feelings. Having watched the inauguration, what are you thinking as you look ahead?
Well, I'm optimistic. I mean, I hope that there will be a opportunity for President Trump to actually preside. I see a real honor brigade of sorts coming forward from the left that really wants to sabotage the presidency, illustrated through the so-called Women's March, and that causes me a lot of concern.
Now, why did you say the so-called Women's March? I want your take on that. I was right in the middle of it on Saturday, not by design, but that's where we ended up, so I got to witness it up close and in person. Why do you say the so-called Women's March?
It wasn't a women's march. It was a march for women who are anti-Trump. It was a partisan political march that was clearly orchestrated by individuals and groups that were disappointed with the election results. So they came out onto the streets. They claimed that they were nonpartisan, but they were clearly anti-Trump. And I have an article that I put up on my pinned to my Twitter feed on how I've identified that at least 50, now 60 organizations have at some time, had some connections with the George Soros philanthropy network. He was a big Hillary Clinton donor. And
maybe the biggest, actually. Yes, 50 or more partners of the Women's March. Again, just like the alleged rioters at Donald Trump rallies were paid for in part and parcel by George Soros because he is he's an anarchist, a rabble-rouser, a guy who's made billions of dollars in the free market trying to destroy the free market. It's baffling to me. Go on.
Well, I just, I literally have this book called Open Society that inspired him by my bedside as my reading, and it's a tome, and I'm trying to understand what his intentions are. But I know that there are people in this country who have written to me since I declared my vote for Donald Trump, from the left and the right, who are sick and tired of the, paid-for politics of billionaires. Of course, Donald Trump is a billionaire too, but he's also now the president of the United States of America.
That's right. And I'm going to dovetail on what I've been saying this morning, which is if the left wants to guarantee they lose the next couple of elections as well, keep Madonna out front, keep Michael Moore right out front, have them saying their hateful, venomous things, have Madonna, drop foul language on live TV. Keep doing that, and the left will continue to lose. I guarantee it.
I think the left has lost 2018, and they are close to losing 2020. And as you know, your listeners might not, I've been a lifelong Democrat. I've been a lifelong liberal. I believe in the values still that, made me old school liberal, which is an open-mindedness, right? But I do understand that that's on the conservative side also. And compassion is ultimately what has to override everything. And that's what I see so lacking. But I had a great day on Friday. I went out for the inauguration, stood on a wall to look at the sea of humanity before me. People were kind. There was a woman, military mother to my right, a Hillary supporter with tears in her eyes to the left. And you know what? They both met each other, and that was what was beautiful. They shook hands on.
That's right. Inclusiveness, true diversity. You've got it, Asra. Always a pleasure when we get the chance to speak. I was there with you on Friday as well. I saw the same thing. Asra Nomani. Find her on Twitter right now for a brand new article she just wrote. Asra Nomani, Nomani. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Taking a closer look at the stories that affect you most with a big dose of common sense.
For any of you that don't have Twitter but have Facebook, good news. I just went and put up the Asra Nomani article on the Steve Gruber Show Facebook page. Asra Nomani's article about George Soros and the 50 groups backing the so-called Women's March in D.C. over the weekend. So you can go check it out there. Pretty easy to do. Welcome back to the Steve Gruber Show on this Monday. From Asra to Nadra Enzi, also known as Cap Black and the Hood Conservative. Project 21 member Nadra Enzi is an outspoken anti-crime activist based in New Orleans, Louisiana. Nadra, welcome to the program.
Good morning, everybody. How are we doing?
We're doing good, sir. And here's the thing. You live in New Orleans. It's a city that, like many cities, has its crime challenges. We've talked a great deal about Chicago, that if you were to listen to the liberals, it was like Disney. It's like Disney World. It just has a shooting gallery, but it's a wonderful place for all the boys and girls is Chicago and all the inner cities. And anything that's wrong with the inner cities, by the way, is the fault of the Republicans that haven't run those places in 50 years. But you say that that's nonsense, and we can end crime, and we can slow down strained race relations by putting good police officers into community policing positions and elsewhere. Please explain.
Absolutely. It's like a Clockwork Orange, the old movie. If you're going to turn society on its head and say that police and citizens who believe in self-defense, incidentally, are the criminals, that doesn't reduce crime. That theory we've seen played out with disastrous results for the last 8 years. And now we have a president whose major battle cry was law and order. And I actually was talking to, I'll just say, a local elected official who spends a lot of time addressing the very violent crime surge here in New Orleans. And I told him that hopefully his office will be able to get federal funding because, regrettably, our city council, who thinks New Orleans is Mayberry.
See, there it is. Another reference.
Yeah.
I like it. Go on.
Yes.
Yeah, it's Mayberry. You know, everything's fine here. Nothing to see. Move on. And anything that's wrong here, it's the Republic. It's Donald Trump's fault. He's been president for 3 days, you know. And so it's his.
Yes.
Please, come on.
And
how do you
we
fix
have a
it?
violent crime problem with kids as young as 10 years old attacking single women, dragging them off bicycles, beating them up in parking lots, chasing them down the streets, trashing coffee shops. I mean, my volunteer street patrol, we have secured a building here in New Orleans called the Healing Center. Not from rampaging skinheads, not from ravaging young Republicans, but from inner city children who have decided that their answer to gentrification and the ethnic and financial diversification of their neighborhoods is that they're going to throw bricks at people and beat up mostly women.
Well, right. Here's where I got confused. I was at the so-called Women's March in D.C. on Saturday and was amongst them with my wife and my 12-year-old who kept asking me, what are these people protesting? She says they're talking about, you know, we've got to end hate. She goes, but they're hating on Donald Trump. And I said, it's actually more that they're hating anybody that supported Donald Trump. She goes, well, can you name me one right that a guy has or a boy has that I don't have? I said, no, honey, there's nothing that I can name that a boy has that you don't. And so she's like, well, what are they protesting? If a 12-year-old can figure that out, why can't the rest of them?
I've done a lot of grief counseling for my liberal friends because they feel like it's like, imagine if Adolf Hitler and Pol Pot and Mao Zedong and Joseph Stalin combined was elected. That's what they feel with Trump. And again, I bring it home to New Orleans. We have a mayor Again, it's all Democrats. Most of the people I help in the city are liberals. Doesn't matter. We're all human. We're all American. But I always have to remind them that these policies, which our Republican state attorney general called hug-a-thug policies, here in New Orleans have accomplished one thing. You have a 40-year manpower shortage for your police department. You have an environment here where, despite robust and wild, violent crime, if you defend yourself against a criminal, you will face prosecution, even if you're exonerated.
You don't see, and then there's part of it. See, that's going to change. The fact of the matter is we have rights to defend ourselves in this country. I have every right to defend myself, my family, my home, and if needed, my community. I have the right to defend these things, and it's a God-given right, an inalienable right, given to me by the founding fathers of this nation, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely. You know, the right pre-existed the Constitution, and the Constitution recognizes the right.
So it must be tough for you. Nadra Enzi on the program here, Cat Black, the hood conservative, as you were referred to, Project 21 member. You must get some interesting comments. You must get a lot of hate mail or direct threats or a lot of interesting feedback, I would guess. What happens to you when you're out there preaching the gospel of the right, if you will?
I guess because I'm not a pencil neck frat boy, I don't get a lot of some of the vitriolic feedback to my face. But again, with my volunteer street patrol, the people I help overwhelmingly are not members of my political party. But you see, one of the sobering facts is when women are afraid to come outside their houses, politics and ideology takes a backseat to safety.
Well, here's the other thing. Not just women, but people that are elderly that live in these neighborhoods, and they can't afford to get themselves out of there. They're trapped in these neighborhoods that have gone, that are deteriorating. So how do you got to look out for these folks, period. You have to look out for these kids, those that can't defend themselves, women, the elderly, whoever it may be. It's time. I mean, Bill Clinton, for all the criticism he's taken for it, did reduce crime in this nation with his crime bill back in the mid-1990s. It was a strict anti-crime bill. Giuliani in New York did much of the same. I'll give you 30 seconds for the last word here, Nadra.
Briefly, we have a president who believes in law and order. We have a president who supports the Second Amendment. These are inalienable rights that were given to us by God and enshrined in the Constitution for individuals, which means all of us. I would tell our liberal friends that you should be happy because the urban apocalypse that was encouraged for 8 years has finally met an ideological wall that it can't breach.
The urban apocalypse. And so, man, I need to talk to you more because I want to talk about the left saying it was a dark and militant speech. I think you're just saying, here's what we need to fix. Nadra Enzi, great conversation. Want to have you back soon, my friend.
Absolutely. Either govern yourself or somebody else will.
Amen. Back after this.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, let's review here on this Monday. Donald Trump is president. Donald Trump is president. Next. I think that got it done. Yeah, there you go. The hotline number here today, 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. On the Steve Gruber Show Facebook page, a whole host of articles you'll be seeing and videos and so forth from the weekend spent in D.C., both at the inauguration and the Women's March, in the thick of all of it, all the action for you. And just want to make sure that you keep up to date on the Facebook page. It's the best place, the best resource for you to be. And it's the best place for you to find out exactly what we did and how you can learn from it as well. There you go. All right, quickly, Frank in DeWitt. Frank, welcome to the program. You're on the hotline.
Yes, good morning. I thought you might like to hear from a proud climate change denier. I just want to say that anything that goes wrong from this point on for the next 20 years is all Barack Obama's fault. All right? Let's make this perfectly clear. The terrorist attacks that are probably coming are because of him, because of all what he has allowed. And since I guess it was okay for him to blame George Bush for everything, when that was a lie, it's okay for us to blame him for everything when it's the truth. And the next election starts now. I can't wait to get out and vote against the Democrat Party again, and we're going to get Stabenow out of the Senate.
All right,
Have
Frank.
a good day, Steve.
Thank you so much. Thanks for checking in. Thanks so much on that. And the hotline number, 888-900-9966. Now, I want to go over something else here because I just want to kind of go into this narrative so you understand. There is nothing more closed-minded than the open-minded liberal. Nothing. As if we needed even more reminders of this metaphysical truth. Behold, Donald Trump, president, and the inauguration, which has so many leftists engaged in avalanche-esque amounts of flagrant, obnoxious behavior and whiplash-inducing hypocrisy. And if you want some quintessential distilled leftist essence, look to the Silicon Valley. Liberal CEO slams middle America. No educated person wants to live in a, quote, S-hole with stupid people. You fill in the blank. The CEO of a marketing and advertising firm in San Francisco has attacked middle America in a bizarre rant on Facebook. Melinda Byerly, CEO of Timeshare, CMO, and an apparent Hillary Clinton supporter, wrote, "One thing middle America could do is to realize that no educated person wants to live in a S-hole with stupid people, especially violent, racist, and or misogynistic ones. So if you want jobs, clean up your act and make your town a place that people like us want to live," said the liberal. "Make it a point to elect a progressive city council like ours," said the liberal, "and commit it to not being bigots." Well, thank you so much for that. I would imagine the Americans who this tolerant, open-minded leftist dismisses as stupid people who live in S-holes are going to rush to fundamentally transform their towns into mid-America San Francisco freak shows so as to attract her and her tolerant, open-minded ilk. The funny part, this woman runs a marketing firm. Not just marketing, free-range, artisanal, organic, customized marketing, whatever the hell that means. Another Silicon Valley company that appears to fundamentally misunderstand its mission statement is Airbnb. Their website describes their self-assigned Airbnb community commitment as thus. Earlier this year, we launched a comprehensive effort to fight bias and discrimination in the Airbnb community. As a result of this effort, we're asking everyone to agree to the following community commitment beginning November 1, 2016, in order to continue using Airbnb. Quote, "I agree to treat everyone in the Airbnb community, regardless of their race, religion, national origin, ethnicity, disability, sex, gender, identity, sexual orientation, or age, with respect and without judgment or bias." But then, just 7 days later, came the Trump bomb. And the Airbnb community dropped the Airbnb community commitment like a scalding potato. Donald Trump's surprise victory blows up Washington Airbnb market. Quote, "Many Washington residents, 94% of whom voted for the Democratic nominee, were ready to open their homes to fellow Clinton supporters for the inauguration, but those plans were among the many things upended on November 8th when Donald Trump won the election. A few Airbnb hosts are even reconsidering their hospitality. Some individuals who had planned to post their D.C. homes on Airbnb said they're feeling conflicted about renting to or sharing their place at all with people who voted for Donald Trump. Here's a quote for you. "I have a visceral reaction to the thought of having a Trump supporter in my house," said Labna, who had planned to rent out a room in the apartment she shares with two roommates. "All three of them are Clinton supporters. No amount of money could make me change my mind," she said. "It's about moral principles." Meredith said she and her roommate had hoped to make some extra money renting out their two-bedroom apartment for inauguration week while they left town. Trump's win, however, has given them pause. "We don't trust Trump supporters to stay in our place." What happened to the Airbnb community commitment? Where is the judgment and bias-free openness for each and every human on this big blue marble of ours, ladies? Where is Airbnb itself? Why aren't company executives refusing to enforce its very own community commitment? Airbnb hires instead Eric Holder for anti-discrimination policy. Airbnb CEO Brian Chesky said Airbnb has an obligation to be honest about our own shortcomings and do more to get our house in order. From here, the jokes pretty much write themselves. Go with it. Airbnb appoints Chris Lehane, former aide to Bill Clinton, head of global policy and public affairs. And the jokes are pretty much endless at that point. Airbnb, by the way, is conducting itself in the they're conducting discrimination. They're biased. They're judgmental. They're hyper-partisan. And it's exactly what you would expect from a company that would hire the likes of discriminatory, biased, judgmental, hyper-partisan people like Holder and Lehane to begin with. So we watch as Airbnb does not enforce its own community commitment so much as it throws it right out the window when it comes to renting. Not Republicans. We can't we can't rent to Republicans. We can be open-minded as long as they're Democrats. You see how ridiculous it is. The all-inclusive left includes no one but themselves. Sam, welcome to the program on the hotline. You've got about 30 seconds. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I just wanted to rebut the San Francisco liberal who claims that the middle America is cities are S-holes. If you listen to Michael Savage, who lives in San Francisco, he will tell you that the bums in San Francisco defecate in the street regularly. So he should look in his own neighborhood before he calls middle America S-holes.
Well, they've never been here, and that's the fact. They fly over you and I as they look down upon us on their transcontinental flights from L.A. to New York and back again. Sam, thank you for checking in. Straight ahead today, we'll have Seton Motley here on the program. That article appeared on his website, Less Government, recently. We'll talk about that straight ahead right here on this Monday on The Steve Gruber Show.
Delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
I just put up a video on the Steve Gruber Show Facebook page. Big Mike, big dude up there, stuck in the middle of the Los Angeles Women's March and giving it to him. Just giving it to him. Yeah, you got to go watch Big Mike. He not buying it. He not buying their whole hate Trump thing. He's not buying the political correctness. It's good fun to watch. Quickly to Matt and Oakos. Matt, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I think we need a new protected class. It's called a political affiliation. If they need to protect the people politically,
apparently
attacking them.
Yeah, apparently they can't take it. You know, we need everybody's a victim. Everybody should just be a victim. That's except if you're a Christian or you're white. Thanks, Matt, for that. I got to run to Seton Motley now, the president of Less Government. And Seton, I just shared with the folks here. The lovely folks at Airbnb and the lovely CEO of the timeshare CMO about how we live in, complete crap holes apparently in America, except we should make it nice, like they're liberal bastions, and then the whole world would be okay. Seton, welcome back.
Thank you. Did you enjoy the George Soros-funded Vagina Travelogues?
I did. And in fact, I was right in the middle of it. I was right in the middle of it on Saturday, not quite intentionally, but we were in D.C. for the inauguration, wanted to go to a museum. Ivy and I, and along with our 12-year-old daughter, headed off to the museum. Before you know it, we were in the middle of this sea of people. My daughter, the 12-year-old, asking the best questions. Why are they so hateful? I thought they were against hate. Why are they so hateful and mean? And don't I have the same rights as a boy? Yes, dear, you do, and I don't know why they're so hateful and claiming to be so loving. I mean, her questions were the best, Seton, no question.
Yes, because she's 12 years old, and therefore, despite probably attending a government school, and I'm not casting aspersions.
Well, go ahead, I don't mind.
But despite that, she seems to have escaped it because of your parenting, the indoctrination that is undertaken in those schools. So good for her and good for you guys.
Absolutely. She had a terrific civics lesson from the inauguration to a tour of the Capitol. In fact, we were able to walk right down the steps where Donald Trump had walked less than 24 hours earlier, right down to the podium. We got a special tour from a member of Congress, Congressman Tim Walberg. Thank you for that. Shout out to him for that.
Good man.
But for her, what a learning experience it was to be in D.C., to go to some of the monuments, to go to some of the museums, to see not only the inauguration, and I'm perfectly fine
So
seeing
you're
a
saying
big march
because she's
like
a woman, she wasn't prevented from attending any of the monuments.
Well, there you go. Exactly. A good point you make there because, pretty soon but Donald Trump, probably all women will be forced to stay home. No, wait a second. Isn't it the governments that these people support, like, say, Saudi Arabia or Iran? That's where people are actually treating women as second-class citizens.
And remind me again who ran his campaign?
George Soros?
Kellyanne Conway is a very strange name for a guy.
I thought you were asking about Hillary Clinton's campaign. No.
Oh, no,
Kellyanne
I'm saying Trump's campaign.
I got you.
Kellyanne's a very strange name for a guy.
Yeah, it is. And that woman, she handles herself with class all over the place. And here's the other thing that was weird. We were standing there, I don't know what this argument's about. We stood there and watched the action live in the Jumbotron. We got there about, 3 hours or so before the inauguration. We saw all of the people. We saw the live Jumbotron feeds of the crowds and so forth. And then CNN and others are showing crowds that are like half of what we were watching live. I'm like, what are they doing?
Yeah, I subject myself to Morning Joe on MSNBC every morning. And that's all they're talking about now is the Spicer lie on Saturday. And Britt Hume, who is a conservative, but let's face it, are there 5 people in D.C. that don't respect Britt Hume? And he tweeted out and said, I was standing up where Trump was standing. The picture you're looking at is from earlier in the morning.
Absolutely. Absolutely true.
And I don't care where you are ideologically. How many people don't respect Britt Hume? He's not an ideological warrior, running out talking points. He's saying, I was there. This picture's way early.
Exactly. I was there as well, and I can tell you the pictures that you're seeing are garbage. I got there 3 hours early, and by the time I got there 3 hours early, I couldn't get to my designated spot. I had to go to my next alternate spot. My area was already closed.
Did they actually issue more than one spot?
What do you mean?
Did they actually issue you several spots? Is that how it worked?
Well, I don't know. They just said you've got a blue ticket. This area is already closed. Go up to the next spot to the left, and they literally filled up one area, then they filled up the next and the next and the next. Yeah, trust me. And that was 3 hours in advance. My seats were already gone 3 hours prior to the event.
It sounds like an airline. They overbooked.
Yeah, well, so it is, and there it is. But and then we went to this march and here's what I suggest, Seton. If the Democrats want to lose really badly the next time around, please, for me, let Madonna speak daily. Let Michael Moore go out there and speak daily because he is a grotesque human being in every aspect. He really is a grotesque human being in his mind, in his heart, in his soul. He's a disgusting human being in my estimation. And I don't say that about many people, but good Lord, Michael Moore, I find revolting.
And what's funny is Ashley Judd is attractive. She's a Hollywood actress.
Well, and then Madonna just, dropping the F-bombs all over the infield. That's the kind of person, because Donald Trump is vulgar and, and he is offensive to women. But Madonna, now there's a role model for you.
Well, look, I've said this from the very beginning. Look, my entire life I've had people go, aren't you offended by what they just said? And I go, oh, yeah, I guess I should be. I just don't have that. I don't have that, that register in my brain. It just doesn't, I don't get offended. It just doesn't happen. But what I've watched these people on our side who are offended or upset by Donald Trump. I'm like, have you ever been to Queens? Because that's everybody in Queens. This is him. You may not like it, but you've written off at least one of the boroughs in New York City.
Yeah, listen, people from New York have irritated me my entire life. I'm just good. You know what? I'm just gonna tell you. No, you know what?
I find
they're
Like
obnoxious.
Trump, I find the people from Queens and Brooklyn much more pleasurable than the people from Manhattan.
Well, I give you that, but I found people from New York to be abrasive, loud, and obnoxious my entire life. But that might be exactly what America needs right now. Somebody that's brash and to the point and black and white. I'll give you 15 seconds for the last word.
You're exactly right. Nice guys finish last. See the George Bush administration.
There you go. All right. Seton Motley, less government. Well done. Well played. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much, sir.
Always a pleasure. Seton Motley. There you go. Back in a moment on the Steve Gruber Show.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
3 after. Good videos, good conversation all day today. There's already been a lawsuit filed against Donald Trump. Apparently going to be filed, well, not quite yet, maybe in the next few minutes. Something about emoluments. Some group claiming that they're trying to save America by filing a lawsuit against Donald Trump on day 3. All right, so there you go. On health reform, President Barack Obama achieved that which eluded the Democratic Party for a century. The Affordable Care Act created a government guarantee of access to health care for all, they say, but it wasn't really the Democrats that pursued this to begin with. This is Teddy Roosevelt. Last time I checked, he had an R after his name. But Michael Tanner's here, senior fellow at Cato Institute, talking about where we go from here, because Obamacare has proved to be inefficient and not well liked by the majority of the country. Michael Tanner, welcome back to the program.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you as always.
Great. So let's start with this day 3, the left filing lawsuits against Trump. Trump having the fewest number of cabinet members approved on the first day of his administration of any of the last 4 or 5 presidents anyway. The obstructionist Democrats, they're going from day 1, and they're not going to try to give him any breath, any air, any opportunity to do anything. How do we get through changing Obamacare if he's not even given a chance?
Well, the Republicans do have a majority, and unfortunately, Donald Trump's about to find out the legislative process is designed to be slow and cumbersome. The Founding Fathers set up a series of checks and balances designed to make it difficult to enact things, and that's a good thing generally. We don't want the sort of whips, back and forth of policy when you get one party in or the other. We do want to have a slow, deliberative process. Unfortunately, that's frustrating for everybody involved.
Well, that's true. Okay, so, but about this obstructionist behavior from Chuck Schumer, who, by the way, as I stood there watching the inauguration, was booed loudly. If that crowd had tomatoes, they'd have been launching him at Chuck Schumer as he was working quietly to launch his presidential bid in 2020. I mean, there's no question about what he was up to in my mind. But he's not popular. These policies are not popular. And I believe that if they continue to be obstructionist, all it's going to do is encourage more people to support Donald Trump, because even if they didn't vote for him, a good number of people think that he deserves an opportunity to lead.
Oh, absolutely. Look, Congress was unpopular when the Republicans were sort of blocking Barack Obama's policies, and the Democrats will be unpopular when they block Donald Trump. So the president has the bully pulpit. Donald Trump's particularly adept at using this. And presidents certainly can command public opinion in ways that Congress will never be able to.
Well, that's right. So, okay, so where do you stand here? What do you think as you look at all of these things? And yes, it's going to be difficult, and Donald Trump has a 435 member board of directors that he has to work with, part of which is opposed to his brand of politics and his policies. But I do believe that as long as the Democrats are on the attack and call him dark and divisive and militant and so on and so forth and disparage him at every turn and insult, moreover, the folks that voted for him and supported him as bigots and xenophobic and this and that they're going to reinforce why he won, how he won. And if you put Madonna on tour and Michael Moore on tour, that come 2018 and 2020, it's not going to benefit the left at all. In fact, I think they're damaging their brand.
Well, to some extent, I think you're exactly correct. The Democrats lost pursuing exactly this line of argument. One would think that having lost, that you'd try something different. So I think that they've really got to rethink exactly how they're going to formulate their opposition. There's nothing wrong with opposition. Certainly there's policies of Donald Trump's that I'm opposed to. And we always want to have a two-party system in which one side is putting checks on the other. But sort of the type of arguments they've been making certainly haven't been effective. If I were them, I'd rethink.
Well, what are the policies, Michael Tanner from the Cato Institute, give me an idea of some of the things you do like and some of the things you don't like from Donald Trump that you've heard? I mean, obviously, policies are in place now, but you've seen them. They're coming together. They're solidifying. What are some of the things you look on favorably and some of the things you don't?
Well, in terms of some of the things I think already that I like, I certainly think we're going to see some progress in restraining the growth of government spending. There's been leaks to suggest that the president is going to make some significant cuts in terms of the federal workforce, in terms of federal domestic discretionary spending. A lot of the programs that folks on the right have wanted to put on the chopping block for years are now up for grabs, things like the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, National Endowment for the Arts, programs like that. So I think that that's a very good step in the right direction. I certainly think that in terms of shaking up the status quo and dealing with some of the lobbyist problems and some of the corporate welfare in Washington, I think he could be very effective. I think he is badly mistaken when it comes to issues like entitlement policy, where he's still refusing to touch Medicare and Social Security, which are the primary drivers of the budget deficit. And I think he's wrong-headed on issues like trade. So I think there's going to be areas where I agree with him and areas where I disagree.
And what do you think the priorities? If you were advising the president, where do you think you would start? I believe the economy is first and foremost, and I think that immigration in some of these sanctuary cities. I just saw Governor Abbott of Texas come out and say, "Listen, if you don't reverse your position on some of these sanctuary areas, he'll take away county funding to these cities like Dallas and Houston and so forth. If they remain sanctuary cities, their funding's going to get cut off." That's the way, you get people's attention, is taking the money away from them, I guess.
Well, I think you're right in terms of the economy being the number one priority. And I think here's something where he can really have an impact, particularly on the regulatory and tax side. Tax reform needs to be a priority, reducing the corporate tax rate to make America more competitive worldwide, dealing with the excess regulations that the Obama administration and the Bush administration before that put in place that I think really hamper American business, particularly small businesses. These are things where I think he can draw from some Democrats, and he can sort of put together the type of strong majority and get a lot of support from the American people. I think that those are the low-hanging fruit, if you will, that he should start with.
And I agree with that. When you look at some of the other entanglements we have maybe in foreign policy, Theresa May on her way, I believe she's coming on Friday, the British Prime Minister of the UK coming here Friday. And I see some connection between these two on the things that I'm reading. I wonder if there's a possibility there could be a strong relationship between Theresa May, the Prime Minister of the UK, and Donald Trump, the President of the United States, maybe not unlike what you saw between Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan many years ago.
Well, that would certainly be terrific, and there's certainly some opportunities here. Theresa May was actually one of the very first foreign leaders to reach out to Donald Trump after his election, and she has followed up on that several times. In the wake of Brexit, the British are looking at some unilateral trade deals, one possibly with the United States, and that would be good for both countries if we could pull that off.
Well, certainly, and the Brits need that. And the other thing is, you look at America, now Donald Trump has said he's going to renegotiate NAFTA. I believe he will to some extent, because really, the United States and Canada are so integrated in trade. They're almost as like trading with one in many respects. So you have so many parts go back and forth across borders for automobiles and washing machines and a variety of products back and forth almost constantly that you'd almost want to include Canada, I think, in an agreement with the UK. We'll see how that plays out. Michael Tanner, although I'll give you 20 seconds for the last word today.
Well, I think, Donald Trump deserves, like any president, we should, a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. We should watch what he does, not just what he says. That said, he's certainly going to find that governing is a little different than campaigning, and I wish he would start doing that, stop paying attention to things like crowd sizes, and start paying attention to policy.
And there you go, Michael Tanner from the Cato Institute. Thank you very much for that, and we appreciate the conversation as always.
Anytime.
After the break, we're going to take your phone calls on the hotline. What do you think so far of the inauguration of the March on Washington, of any of the other things you're seeing on social media and elsewhere? Give me a call, 888-900-9966. 888-900-9966. This is The Steve Gruber Show.
Keeping you in touch with Michigan and the world.
All right, 45 after. Hey, if you want to join the conversation, do so. 888-900-9966. 888-900-9966. Trying to keep up with all your comments here online. I mean, I've literally had thousands of people make contact since we went on our odyssey, if you will, starting last Wednesday. And the first guy I met, of course, Bernie Sanders. Bernie, now that was one grumpy old man, I'll tell you that. I mean, and I don't think it had anything to do with the fact that, he lost. I think it had to do with the fact that, he's just a grumpy old man. Judge Jeanine, during her opening statement over the weekend, Judge Jeanine Pirro predicted on the Fox News Channel show Justice that President Donald Trump will be the biggest change agent in the history of the United States. And he will unite the country together. Donald Trump would be the biggest change agent in the history of the United States, she declared. The president is not dark and militant. The president is simply talking about a world that exists for people in this great nation who never asked to be victims of crime, never asked to be born in the inner city, never asked to be victimized by drugs or gangs, and never asked to be trapped in poverty. Thank God there is a man who is strong enough to admit to our faults and our weaknesses and is willing to take them on, shine a light on them, show that to all of us so that we together can make a difference for all of us, and yes, especially the weakest among us. I wholeheartedly agree. I wholeheartedly agree. The truth about gangs and drugs and pervasive and persistent violence in those inner cities, if that means telling the truth about the graveyard of American factories scattered from Pittsburgh to Peoria, then I'm on board with it. If that means telling the truth about picking replacement parts from airplane boneyards to keep the Marines in the air and we need to do better, I'm on board with that. If Donald Trump means that we need to connect with a forgotten America in the middle of this nation that feels mistreated and ignored for the last many years, then it's time to get on board with that. To me, it's refreshing to hear the president tell the truth about the challenges we all face. It is a cold slap of reality to realize it isn't all rainbows and unicorns, and pardon me, but pink pussy hats. It is also about damn time that somebody was willing to look us in the face and say, you know what, we've got some real problems we need to deal with. It's time to get it under control. And if we don't, then your whole progressive dream of a new world order won't mean much, because if it all falls apart before we give official victimhood to every newborn child that ran the abortion gauntlet and survived, then what difference does it make anyway? Seriously, what difference does it make if we hit a credit crisis in this country and the monetary system fails? Or if we get sucker punched again by radical Islamic terrorists while you're spending all of your time on the critical issue of same-sex bathrooms? Does it really matter if you have a cute handmade pink hat if there's an actual crisis that we have to deal with here in America? I have a news flash for you folks. For you folks on the left, here's the news flash. Donald Trump won. Maybe you heard. And you encouraging the obliteration of his presidency 3 days into it by supporting social justice warriors in the honorable pursuit of smashing windows out of fast food franchises, it's probably not the best course of action. But hey, if cheering for Madonna while she dumps F-bombs live on TV and in front of children makes you feel better about yourself, well, then by God, go for it. After all, I do support free speech. I mean, as I shared with my daughter, who was trapped inside that women's march in D.C. with me and Ivy over the weekend, the only way to know how much you disagree with someone is let them run their mouths freely. So hate away. Denigrate away. You are certainly reinforcing the very reasons your candidate lost in a big way, and the very reason and the route that Donald Trump secured 57% of the Electoral College. You can blame the Russians and fake news. You can say the voting machines were rigged and that Republicans somehow blocked minorities from voting. You can say just about anything you want. And again, I encourage you to do so, because that kind of dialogue isn't getting you anywhere, but I'm cheering you on. I hope you continue to attack for the next 4 years. I do hope you treat Donald Trump worse than Ronald Reagan. I mean, you remember how his second run for the White House turned out, don't you? If you don't, look it up. Do you remember telling us we'd all die in a thermonuclear war if Ronald Reagan was elected? Do you remember telling us the economy would crash and burn? Do you remember calling him Ronnie Reagan for suggesting we could put a nuclear defense system in place and protect ourselves from attack from other nations? Do you remember those things? Because we do. So please, by all means, stay on the war path. Please let Madonna speak on a regular basis. Let Michael Moore get on tour nationwide as soon as possible, please. And please continue to denigrate, insult, marginalize, label, and degrade all of us that have an opposing political view with your uplifting message of liberal inclusion. Please keep doing all of these things, and we will see Donald Trump not only win 2 terms, but Mike Pence will likely follow right behind him. Your radicalized view of the world and your weaponized social media attacks don't seem to intimidate the good people of Michigan or Wisconsin or Pennsylvania or anywhere else anymore. You can kick and scream the entire time you fly over us from L.A. to New York. You can continue to pump the propaganda into the free-running sewers of the internet, but it doesn't seem to matter anymore. Chuck Todd of NBC, George Stephanopoulos of ABC, and a horde of other media whores of other scurrying rats can claim to have the high ground of journalism, but we have seen behind the curtain and we know the truth about them and their polling and their reporting. So please, liberals, be loud and proud. Call us knuckle draggers and cave dwellers. I beg you to do this. For if you do, we will finally rid this nation of the illness of progressive socialist and Marxist thought that has sickened us for more than a century. It is time to put a lid on the garbage can Woodrow Wilson spilled into this nation, and it's time to begin the long slog of cleaning it up. And don't worry, we're happy to do it. We know you have much more important things to do, like knit pink hats and get Madonna on stage for uplifting diatribes about the deficiency of being a man. After all, I hear it's what you need to do, and we appreciate it. And I fully support the beauty of free speech. And I encourage you to continue down this path of hate-filled venom and attacking those you don't agree with. Please do. And I'll see you all at the voting booth come November of 2018 and again in 2020. 52F.